In this clip we take our first corridor piece and use it to create a random number of additional corridor pieces and close it off with a gateway. So what I want to do is the following. In the end I will merge this first corridor piece with what we're going to create next. As I briefly mentioned, I'm going to use the bottom of this first corridor to identify the direction we have to follow. That means I need another blast node, and again I check if the position on the y-axis is equals 0. Check delete none selected and set the group type to points. And this is where we can start reusing coding that we already created. Jump one layer up and we want to grab the wrangle, pick an open direction. Select the node, copy it and jump right back into the subnetwork. Paste the node, and this time we don't want to open an entrance, this time we want to pick a corner. Connect our remaining floor primitive to the wrangle and let's see what we have to change in the coding. We can start by deleting the whole section that reacts to the status of the entrance. As I already said, I want to write the coding in a way that allows me to reuse most of it. Even though I'm not sure if I will use this logic in a place where the incoming primitive has another structure than a corridor, I still create an if condition that checks if that is the case. When your projects get more and more complex, it's a good idea to put those fail-safe conditions inside your coding. Now that we know that we're indeed dealing with the previous corridor, we can grab the direction from that primitive. Then we're going to use the function that we already established in this wrangle, the function findCorner for direction. The function returns the one corner point that matches the direction in the way we defined it previously. And another failsafe, only if the found point is not equals -1, then delete the other points. And once again, this leaves us with one primitive with only one point, pointing in the east direction. Now from here we want to create additional corridor pieces that are finally closed off with a gateway. For this we're going to reuse the wrangle place first corridor on open entrance and rename it to place corridors and gateway. The first thing we're going to do in this wrangle, we put the whole creation process into a function. The function will be called place corridor and it needs the direction and a current position. Then we cut out this statement where we grab the direction from the previous primitive. All of this will be part of that function, and then down here we create the function call, direction grab, and this time we don't need to remove the initial primitive. Now that we made a function out of this, we need to replace addP with the variable pos. And luckily this editor has a search and replace function. After you hit that icon, you can now search for one string and replace it with another. Click on find next just to check that you made no mistake. And then you can either click on replace next for multiple times or just click replace all once. Now back to our function. Previously the available position was a corner point of a gateway. Now we continue an already placed corridor piece with another corridor. That means we have to adjust our coordinates that we add on to the original position. And once again I will provide you with a file that has all of that data already included. That file will continue right here, because here we're going to call that function. We already have the direction, but the function also needs the current position. We only have one available position, and that is the remaining corner of the previous corridor. Hit apply and then place the visibility flag on the last node. And that looks like we did everything correctly, except for that green underline at our function head. I thought I might have to return one of the corner points, but as it turns out I don't need that. That means our function does not have an int return parameter, its returning value is void. Now at this point we created the next corridor piece and adjusted the code for all possible directions. But we don't want to build only one piece. We want to build a random number of corridor pieces. That number will be defined by something, and after that loop we place the gateway. But before we can do that, we have to find out where something comes from. For now I initialize it with 1. Then I go back up a few levels, right where I have my subnetwork create corridor network. Here I already have defined the first body attributes. We need a few more settings. For one, we need 2 additional integers. So drag and drop the integer into our body attributes folder, and then we call these corridors min and corridors max. With these values I will define how many corridors can be placed, but to create a random factor I also include a new float variable. This one will be the corridor seed. Hit accept and initialize the values with something reasonable like 1 to 4. Copy the parameter and then jump right back to our latest wrangle. Inside the wrangle we want to bring in those newly created parameters. Remember, for integer you need chi, and for the float parameter use just ch. Then click on the icon to generate the new UI elements and paste the relative reference. Copy this same reference into the other 2 parameters and adjust the naming accordingly. This might be a good place to also include our global seed. So do the same procedure with the G seed. Hit the button again and another parameter should appear. And while we're here, I made a mistake here. The corridor seed was named piece seed. So finally, back in our wrangle, we can define what something is. We know it should be a random value generated from the seeds. Then we have to fit the result from 0 to 1 into our definition of the min and max value of the corridor pieces. We want the result to be an integer, so I use the function rint to round it to the nearest integer, and then I of course have to cast it into int. And for the seeds I place in the variables cseed and gseed and then also add a random value. Now that created a couple of corridor pieces, but it's difficult to see that because they are all in the same spot. I need them to spread out in that direction. So what is missing? At the moment the origin point is saved in pos, and it stays the same for each iteration. The solution is pretty simple. We already have the direction we want to go in saved in the equally named variable. A corridor is 4 units long, so we can simply add direction times 4 onto our position. That finishes the corridors, and that leaves us with the gateway that we still have to place. It is supposed to be right here. So we call for a function placeGateway that almost looks identical to placeCorridor. To create the function, we just copy the placeCorridor function, rename it, and when we hit apply, another structure in the size of a corridor appears. No surprise there. So once more we have to adjust our coordinates. Again, it's easy to make a mistake at this point, and if you do, you end up with something like this. I missed one point by 2 units, so let's correct that one. Much better. With all of that, the foundation of our corridor network is in place. What's left to do in this wrangle is to adjust the setting of attributes. Since we closed off this corridor with the gateway, we no longer need the direction, and all of the primitives have the structure gateway. And this also was the last time where we needed to be that precise with finding coordinates. All of the other pieces we create by reusing the existing wrangles.